I get to learn things, and I don't know much about like the bail side of the criminal justice system, and so this topic of conversation is kind of a new one for me. Drew Bloom, who's the executive vice president of 3D Bail Bonds, joins us here at Bryan & Company in studio. First of all, Drew, good morning. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so, and I just said this off air. When I envision like bail bonds and bail bondsmen, I think of Midnight Run with Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin. So, I mean, is that what it is? I mean, give me the reality. Like, what do you do?
Well, in reality, that's an exciting side of the business, and there is two sides to this business. The more important side is the fact that we help people get out when they are locked up in pretrial detention. We help them get out of jail so that they can fight their cases from the outside, save their jobs, be with their family, and not stay locked up in jail.
So when someone say there's a $1,000 bond, you're like basically giving them a loan to get them out, but they don't have to pay the full amount. Can you explain how the system actually works?
Well, the system works where if the person has a $1,000 bond, they put up 10% with a bondsman, so it costs them $100, and we put up the $1,000 in the form of an insurance. We insure the state that this individual will show up. We insure the taxpayers that this individual will show up. We insure the victims that this individual will show up. If they don't, we go out and get them, and that's where you go back to your movie, the other side, the sexy side.
I don't know how sexy it is. It can be scary, I guess, but it is. I mean, it's wild that happens a certain percentage of time.
Well, the failure to appear rates of people who miss court is pretty consistent, whether they're on a bond or on a promise to appear. It doesn't really matter. They fail to appear pretty consistently.
Really? So
So it's not a huge percentage, probably about 13% for a round number.
And you make your money based on there's a percentage like on top of the amount that's bonded out. Is that how it works?
We charge a fee for our service. Our service, again, is that we ensure that people show up and we help them get out. That's our fee. They don't forfeit that money to us. They pay us that money. That's our fee.
Got it.
So the money we collect is our fee.
We're talking about Drew Bloom from 3D Bail Bonds. Okay, so what's in the news? Talk to me. I know there was some effort at some point to do some real significant bail reform in this legislative session. It did not materialize. But then, you know, and I read a little bit about it. There are some judges that really want to change the system, and I know there's a big week this week in terms of some sort of gathering with on that side of things. Just explain what's at issue.
Well, what's at issue is we've been attacked from different angles to try to reform bail, but when they say reform, they should really just say abolish, because reform is not what's happening. They're attempting to abolish us. So
Why would they want to do that?
I don't know. That's just, they keep talking about how there's poor people languishing in jail, and then that was debunked. And then they talk about how there's violent people getting out, and it's just, everything is always about anything they can use to attack. They feel that we're a cash cow. They feel that we're money that they can use and put that into programs instead and put the money elsewhere. But the money doesn't come from the state. The money comes from the private sector. We are a private sector industry. We collect our fees from the public. We don't collect it from the taxpayers. We collect it from the family members, and it keeps family members involved. It's important that family members are involved in the decisions whether or not somebody gets out.
And if you were taken out of the equation, there would be very little to hold people accountable to showing up at court.
People fail to appear the same rate. Like I say, they fail to appear whether they use us or they don't. The problem is that there's no magic warrant squad that goes out and picks people up when they fail to appear.
Right.
We do. We're 85% successful at getting people when they miss court. All other forms put together are 55%. They failed. They get an F, we get a B.
We're talking with Drew Bloom, who's the executive vice president at 3D Bail Bonds. Has there always been this sort of tension within the system?
It started a number of years back in a previous administration, and it was a failed attempt to eliminate us at that time. And a lot of the same people that were in play back then are still in play.
Right. And in terms of, so what's happening is there something happening this week?
So this week, the judges on Friday are voting to make a rules change that failed 2 years ago when they made it at 10% on all bonds, 20,000 or less, could be posted with the state instead of using a bail bondsman. And the problem with that is, again, nobody picks people up when they miss court, so they're basically just getting a 90% discount to get out. And now this time they've stated.
Who's the they?
The they are the judges. The Rules Committee voted on this. Andrew McDonald, in charge of the Rules Committee, voted on this. They put through the rules change, even though in 2019 they received a letter that did not endorse this from the Judiciary Committee, and then they this year they didn't even get any input at all from the Judiciary Committee, and there's laws that say they're supposed to, and they went ahead and did this without them, and they this is an attack on the industry, so they want to make it 7% on bonds 50,000 or less, again cutting at what we do, cutting another little piece
so
of the pie.
So that's 3% less money for you in your business, right?
Well,
From
no.
10 to 7?
It's 3% less for the customers. They can pay less
Right.
and get out with the state than using a bondsman. They're basically going into business against us. They're taking what we would normally post and using it themselves.
We never have enough time for these kind of issues, but we're talking with Drew Bloom from 3D Bail Bonds here on Bryan and Company on WTIC News Talk 1080. If you say you get what you want and things stay status quo, but how long have you been doing this for?
I've been doing it for 26 years.
26 years. Okay. So do you think the system is perfect the way it is? Are there any things you think could be done to improve the system?
Well, public safety is at risk when you make these changes, so you need to be careful what you do. And there's always things that can be done to improve and tweak a system. I'm not saying it's perfect.
Right, no, I'm asking, it's not a leading question. I'm
Right,
naturally
no.
curious, like what is, like, if they want to make changes and you want to keep the status quo, but even with the way it is, like, are things you see in the system, even maybe taking your bail bondsman, hat off for a second, like, does it work well, or what things could be done that you'd be amenable to make it better?
Well, the system works pretty good. We are actually rated 5th in the country for our pretrial detention. So I have offered my input as an expert in the industry to the legislators every year, and I've gone up to the Capitol and the LOB and spoken to them, given them suggestions. So every time that one of these things comes up, I give them suggestions, and one of the things I would suggest is get rid of non-surety bonds. They're a pretend bond that are a fraud to the public.
Well, for layperson terms, what does that mean?
Non-surety bond means there's no surety. It means it's a bond that has a dollar amount that means absolutely nothing. Nobody collects it. Nobody pledges it, well, except the defendant. So they put a $50,000 non-surety bond on somebody. It means nothing because if he fails to appear, it was a promise to appear with a dollar amount that meant nothing. And when I spoke to people in the past and asked them what the real purpose of that was, I was told, well, we don't want people getting out that were confidential informants for ours and the criminals finding out that they were released.
And I have so many more questions. We're straight out of time. It's really, it's great information because I didn't really know much about the business, and we'll stay on top of it, and hopefully you'll come back and give us an update. And it looks like the massive bill isn't going to make it through, but we'll see what happens this week. Drew, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Drew Bloom from 3D Bail Bonds. Your time at the Tones is 8 o'clock.